I want to explain this war through one image, a peace table with one empty chair. America is at the table, Iran is at the table, the documents are there, Hormuz, sanctions, nuclear limits, Lebanon. The negotiators can point to each line and say, this is hard, but this can be worked. They can argue over timing, sequencing, inspections, relief, guarantees, and language. None of it is easy, but none of it is beyond imagination, and still, the deal keeps slipping away. Because the empty chair belongs to the actor whose goals may decide whether any deal can survive. Israel, that is why the peace process feels so strange. America and Iran have reasons to stop. The war is expensive, oil markets are unstable, the world economy is exposed, Iran is damaged. America is being pulled deeper into a conflict that could widen beyond anyone's original plan. Both sides can see the cost, both sides can imagine parts of the exit. But the exit is not controlled by two sides alone. That is the real problem. If this were only America and Iran, the deal would be ugly but possible. Hormuz could open in exchange for reconstruction money and sanctions relief. Sanctions could be staged against nuclear limits. Nuclear limits could return under inspections. Lebanon could be cooled by returning to a managed balance where Hezbollah is weakened but not erased, and Israel gets enough security to step back. This would not be a noble peace. It would be a practical peace. And practical peace is how many wars end, but this war is not being fought by practical needs alone. It is being fought by incompatible end states. America wants exit, Iran wants survival, Israel may want transformation. Those three outcomes do not fit neatly in one document. Start with America. America wants a result it can call strength. It cannot look like it begged Iran to reopen Hormuz. It cannot look like it rewarded Tehran for closing a global energy artery. It cannot look like it ignored the nuclear question. It cannot look like it abandoned Israel or Gulf partners. But America also does not want an endless regional war that drives oil higher, empowers Russia, pushes China into the center of the crisis, and drags American power into another exhausting theater. So Washington needs a balance, enough pressure to say Iran was forced, enough relief to make Iran sign, enough nuclear restraint to reassure allies, enough energy stability to calm markets, enough ambiguity for everyone to claim victory. That is not impossible. It is just unpleasant. Now look at Iran. Iran wants survival with dignity. That word matters. Dignity is not softness in this context. It is political survival. Tehran cannot simply say it lost everything. It cannot give up Hormuz leverage, nuclear dignity, regional influence, and sanctions relief all at once and still claim that resistance worked. So Iran needs an exit it can sell. It needs money for reconstruction. It needs sanctions relief. It needs some form of nuclear program, or at least the claim that it did not permanently surrender sovereign rights. It needs Lebanon and regional influence not to look like total collapse. It needs to tell its public that the cost produced something other than humiliation. That is not the same as America's goal. But it can overlap with America's goal. America does not need Iran humiliated beyond recovery. It needs Iran constrained. Iran does not need to dominate Hormuz forever. It needs money. America does not need sanctions forever. It needs leverage. Iran does not need a bomb. It needs security. America does not need Hezbollah erased by tomorrow. It needs the threat contained. That is where diplomacy leaves, not in trust, in overlap. But now put Israel into the picture. Israel's desired end may be fundamentally different. Israel may not want Iran merely constrained. It may want Iran's regional architecture permanently broken. It may not want Hezbollah merely weakened. It may want Hezbollah's position in Lebanon shattered. It may not want Iran's nuclear program limited. It may want Iran's nuclear future eliminated. It may not want Tehran to survive this war with money, dignity, and a story of endurance. It may want the war to change the map. That is why the empty chair matters. A deal that satisfies America and Iran may look dangerous to Israel precisely because it works. If Hormuz opens, sanctions ease, nuclear limits return, and Lebanon cools, then America gets an exit and Iran gets survival. But Israel may see that survival as the problem. From Israel's perspective, a surviving Iran is not peace. It is the next war given time to recover. That is the contradiction. The same agreement can be an exit for Washington, a lifeline for Tehran, and a strategic failure for Jerusalem. When that is true, the peace process is unstable from the beginning. People often ask why the talks fail if the basic pieces are visible. The answer is that visible pieces are not enough. Every deal needs a security perimeter around it. If one actor can break the deal by striking a negotiator, expanding a battlefield, or making Lebanon impossible to include, then the paper agreement is never secure. That is why the pattern matters. Talks appear close, then something shifts, ceasefire language forms, then violence returns, a negotiator becomes important, then that person becomes vulnerable, Lebanon enters the package, then Lebanon is hit again, to most viewers. This looks chaotic, but inside the structure, it makes sense. A third actor that dislikes the direction of diplomacy can use battlefield events to change the political cost of compromise. That is not a side issue. That is the center of the story. It means America is negotiating with Iran while also needing to manage Israel's tolerance. For the result, Iran is negotiating with America while wondering whether Israel will keep striking anyway. Israel is watching America and Iran approach a possible compromise and asking whether that compromise blocks Israel's larger goals. Each side mistrusts the deal for a different reason. Iran fears concessions will not buy safety. America fears relief will not buy restraint. Israel fears restraint will buy Iran time. That is how a deal can be rational and still fail. The formal issues are real. Hormuz matters, sanctions matter, the nuclear program matters, Lebanon matters. But formal issues are not always the deepest issue. The deeper issue is the desired final picture. What does the region look like after peace? In America's version, Iran is weakened, monitored, and boxed in. Hormuz is open. Oil calms. America avoids escalation. The president claims pressure worked. In Iran's version, the regime survives. Sanctions ease, reconstruction begins. Nuclear dignity remains in some form. Regional influence is damaged but not destroyed. Tehran claims it endured in Israel's version. If the aim is maximal, Iran's system is far more deeply broken. Hezbollah is permanently reduced. Lebanon is reshaped. The Iranian nuclear path is not merely limited, but eliminated. The regional balance changes for a generation. Those final pictures do not match. And because they do not match, every compromise looks like someone else's trap. If America offers sanctions relief, Israel may see Iran recovering. If Iran accepts nuclear limits, Iran may fear Israel will strike anyway. If Lebanon is cooled, Israel may see Hezbollah preserved. If Hormuz opens, Iran loses leverage unless relief arrives fast. If relief arrives fast, American critics call it capitulation. So every bridge has explosives under it. That is why the war keeps producing almost peace, almost. Peace is when the terms are close enough to see, but the trust structure is too weak to hold them. Almost. Peace is when negotiators can explain the compromise but cannot protect it from the battlefield, almost. Peace is when everyone knows the cost of war. But each actor still believes one more round might improve its position. That is where this conflict sits. America thinks pressure can produce a better deal. Iran thinks endurance can preserve dignity. Israel thinks continuation may produce strategic transformation. Those beliefs cannot all be true forever. Something will break. Either the war becomes too expensive and all sides accept a smaller outcome, or one actor pushes too far and the conflict expands, or America finally admits that the negotiation is not bilateral and starts treating Israel's war aims as a central variable, not a background assumption. That last point is the most uncomfortable. Washington is used to talking about Israel as an ally. In many ways, it is, but an ally can have different incentives in a specific war. Friendship does not erase divergence. Shared enemies do not guarantee shared end states. Helping apply pressure is not the same as wanting the same exit if America cannot say that privately. It cannot solve the problem publicly. because the problem is not only Iran's demands, the problem is the mismatch between the deal America may need and the outcome Israel may want. This does not make Iran innocent. Iran built proxy networks. Iran advanced a nuclear program. Iran used Hormuz as leverage. Iran's leaders made choices that brought consequences. It also does not make Israel irrational. Israel has real security fears. Hezbollah is real. Iranian power is real. Nuclear risk is real. From Israel's perspective, leaving Iran alive and partially capable may look like postponing disaster, but geopolitics is not about proving one side has feelings. Everyone has reasons. The question is whether those reasons can fit into one settlement right now. They do not. That is why a deal can look close and still unreachable on paper. America and Iran can trade sanctions for money for opening Hormuz, inspections for nuclear dignity, Lebanon de-escalation for regional balance. But the missing trade is with Israel. What does Israel get for allowing the war to end before Iran is permanently broken? What security guarantee satisfies Israel enough to stop? What Lebanon arrangement is acceptable? What nuclear limit is enough? What happens if Israel decides nothing short of transformation is enough? Those questions are not side questions. They are the deal until they are answered. America and Iran are drafting a contract in a room where one of the people who can burn the contract is not being treated as a signer. That is bad negotiation. It is also dangerous because every failed almost deal teaches the actors to distrust the next one. Iran learns that concessions may invite more attacks. Israel learns that pressure works if it prevents compromise. America learns that diplomacy is fragile and reaches for more pressure. More pressure then makes Iran demand more dignity. More dignity makes Israel more suspicious. The loop tightens, and while the loop tightens, the world economy sits exposed to Hormuz. Oil prices react to rumors. Shipping companies price risk Gulf. States watch nervously. China calculates energy security. Russia benefits from disruption. Civilians pay the cost of leaders trying to improve their positions before the music stops. This is why the idea of a simple peace deal is misleading. There is no simple peace in a three-sided war. A two-sided deal answers two sets of needs. A three-sided deal must answer three end states. America wants exit, Iran wants survival, Israel wants security, and perhaps transformation. If transformation is the real aim, then survival becomes unacceptable. If survival is unacceptable, the American exit becomes impossible. If the American exit is impossible, the war continues until the cost forces a new calculation. That is the logic, harsh but simple. The mistake is pretending the map is cleaner than it is. The United States can keep saying it is negotiating with Iran. That is true. But incomplete, it is also negotiating with the consequences of Israeli strategy. Iran can keep saying it wants relief and sovereignty. That is true. But incomplete, it also has to convince outside powers that it will not use relief to rebuild the same threat. Israel can keep saying it wants security. That is true. But incomplete, it must decide whether security means containment or collapse. Those are different worlds. One can be negotiated. The other may require endless war. So when I look at this conflict, I do not ask first whether America and Iran can find language. They probably can. I ask whether the language can survive the actor most threatened by it. That is the whole story. The deal is not impossible because the clauses cannot be written. The deal is impossible because the war aims do not match. And until Washington looks directly at the empty chair and names it, every peace table will be built wrong from the beginning. Hormuz can be solved, sanctions can be traded, nuclear limits can be written. Lebanon can be cooled, but a missing third side cannot be solved by pretending it is not there. That is why peace remains close enough to see and too fragile to touch. The first real breakthrough will not come from another demand. It will come from admitting the truth. America and Iran may be ready for an exit, but Israel may still be fighting for an ending.